Over the past 20 years, Ryuga Gotoku Studios put their mark on gaming culture with their constant high quality of titles released since 2005. Starting with Like a Dragon, aka Yakuza 1, it's been a long journey to get where we are today, with the franchise going from something Sega wasn't sure couldn't sell in the West to the global juggernaut that the Like a Dragon brand is, standing alongside Sonic the Hedgehog as Sega's major franchises. Over the past few months, however, the community and company have been at odds with each other, with many pulling out of their love for the franchise almost overnight. So we are here to investigate that today. I know you guys don't like clickbait, and I'm not here to read some Twitter threads and articles. This is a scripted video, so hopefully that means you'll actually get some insight to what's going on, and I'm going to chronicle my past experiences of the games, and they'll be timestamped if you want to skip around to see either my thoughts on particular games or to get to the actual drama at hand. And as someone who has been part of the community on the inside, I was there when everything was written, so some tourist doesn't cite the deep magic to me or whatever. Secondly, I will be following up with another video focusing more on the localization of the series and how that made it profit in the West, so if you're curious about that, and if this video does well, press that subscribe button so you might be able to see it. Now, let's get into it. For those who don't know what RGG Studios is, yes, I know there's a few amount of you watching this video who don't. Let's make a long story short. Sega, 2005, Japan, Toshihiro Nagoshi. He was a legendary game developer who worked alongside Yu Suzuki, also directed and created these games. He wanted to make an action-adventure Japanese title. Sega says no. He snuck it into a business meeting. Corpos gained interest and start funding it. He said he would leave the company if it fails. It doesn't. It becomes a franchise, America localizes it, that fails for many years, leading to it being quietly cancelled in the West after the zombie spinoff. Takes 3 years for America to get the 5th title, digital only, fans request Sony to help localize it, being the #1 game for the Build a List campaign Geo Corsi has, we get 5, and then Sega goes all in on Yakuza 0's localization. I apologize that I'm speedrunning this, but I wanted to get to the point as fast as possible. With the release of Yakuza 0 in 2017, it acted as a soft reboot for the franchise in the Western market. During this time, this is how the release cycles went. Japan was ahead of the curve because by the time 0 came out, the Yakuza franchise in its home country of Japan was 3 games ahead with the release of a remake of the first game, the 6th mainline entry, and more games were already on the way. Yakuza was Sega's yearly franchise overseas, so a lot of work was done to get those games over stateside. That's why, to an outsider at the time, it looked like they were just milking the franchise now that they saw money.
Well, they've put out a lot of Yakuza games in the past few years, and I feel like we're getting a bit too many in such a short amount of time. I know some are remakes, but that's just so many Yakuza games on the shelf, man. I'm worried it's going to become a bit too much at some point.
The reality of the situation was that Sega of America was playing catch up with a yearly franchise to not only get those games on store shelves, but to also reintroduce the franchise to this new audience. Due to this effort, a strong community formed of many shapes and sizes, whether it be former fans jumping back in, new fans being introduced to the series, or just people who like how hot the men are. Of course, you do you, no judging. I will join you after this video ends. Of course, some detractors disagreed with the gameplay direction of the franchise multiple times over these years. There was the shift to the Dragon engine, turning the mainline games into an RPG series, and while the franchise experienced a lot of changes, it still kept the fanbase as a whole happy, anticipating every release. Like, if you didn't like the Kiwami games, literally the next year, RGG would announce something unique or original, like the Judgment games or a Fist of the North Star spinoff. I'm trying to paint a picture for anyone to see. While this community had our grievances and people jumped in and out of the series, for the past 8 or so years, Sega and RGG Studios kept its fanbase happy with constant releases, high quality titles, and a consistent feedback loop from fans to developer. In more recent months, the tides have shifted dramatically with disappointing titles, relationships with fans completely non-existent, and many completely disassociating with the series. Some people like to say that Yakuza 0's localization started the downfall of the series. but they're not looking at the larger picture. And heck, yes, there were disagreements about the games being an RPG series now, but that's really not the case where it happened. While Yakuza Like a Dragon raised some heads for its RPG gameplay, it still kept what people liked about the RGG titles and was able to strike an accord with a new audience. While the Western release was a year late, we saw RGG filing on all cylinders, being a next-gen exclusive launch on Xbox, a dub that reanimated all cutscenes to match it, and featured big-name actors like George Takei. Yakuza Like a Dragon from 2020 was a success in the West, and that got people excited for the next entry in the saga, which was Lost Judgment. Now that Sega had finally caught up with the release schedule of the RGG games, Lost Judgment was the most exciting time to be a fan of the franchise, because it was the first time a RGG Studios title would launch worldwide on the same day. So it had taken 16 years. We finally made it to 2021, where the dream of this franchise not only being successful in the West, it would launch simultaneously so all players around the world can enjoy the game together. Lost Judgment was a success for the company, but after this game, it marked a turning point for the series. A month after the launch of Lost Judgment, after 30 years of being at Sega, Toshihiro Nagoshi, head of Ryuga Gotoku Studios, CCO, and creative director of the Yakuza series, would leave Sega to go on to other ventures. He would cite that he didn't want to become the CEO of Sega. Other key staff would also leave the company, including Daisuke Sato, who also had done a lot of work for the series as a producer and director of particular RGG titles. Because of that, RGG went through a major reconstructuring, with Masayoshi Yokoyama taking the role as head and creative director of RGG Studios. Other key staffs were moved up or rearranged in these roles as well. Now, if you were just playing the games, you wouldn't have known this, because the first excursion with this new team was technically the fantastic DLC expansion, Lost Judgment: The Kaito Files. That was already in production during Lost Judgment's development. Many people enjoyed this expansion, including myself, as it gave Macho Boy Kaito some much needed character development and gave him what people who play RGG games didn't expect, a happy ending. It gave a lot of people, including myself, faith in the new team as they were going to move forward and have characters make decisions like this. But then we couldn't expect what happened next. RGG Studios' next move was an ambitious one. On September 14th, 2022, during the RGG Summit, we would see the efforts of the new team come forward. They announced that 3 games were in development. As a fan, this was incredibly exciting because those titles were going to represent the future of the series. And starting that off was the announcement of a Like a Dragon Ishin. So finally, after 9 years, we finally got Like a Dragon Ishin, the 2014 title being a samurai spin-off of the series, a title that many fans have been asking for and to play for such a long time. It was finally exciting to get to play this game. But surprise! It's a Kiwami game! Yeah, the Japanese title for this game is actually Like a Dragon Ishin Kiwami. You just got Kiwami'd! It is Like a Dragon Ishin, but with an all-new engine, of all things the Unreal Engine from the Unoptimization clan, and it looks washed out in comparison to the original version. While the Unreal Engine allowed for better lighting and a sort of seamless open world, it also caused frame rate and stuttering problems. Better yet, they also added the Trooper card system, which completely unbalanced the game in its entirety. The Trooper cards were in the original in a separate minigame, but they just decided to add them to the main game. Great. So in reality, if you wanted to play Like a Dragon Ishin in English, you technically can with this release, but with added mechanics that change up what the original experience was in 2014, and not in a good way. And due to being a re-released RGG title, some characters were recast to feature characters from Like a Dragon 7 and Yakuza 0. This would sometimes ruin how they were portrayed because in the original version, the way characters were cast and written was tailor-made to their personality and role in the mainline series. At the same time, it's not a complete abomination like the actual Kiwami games. Still, something felt off about this release. While it wasn't terrible, and most people in the West got to finally experience Ishin, despite slight censorship, I would say it fared the best in this scenario. The second title they announced and released was Like a Dragon Gaiden, The Man Who Erased His Name. A title that takes place between 6 and 7's storyline, focusing on what Kiryu was doing in between those games. This story would lead into the next mainline entry as well, but it's a Gaiden title, a side story not to be treated like a mainline game. Originally, The Man Who Erased His Name was planned to be part of Infinite Wealth, aka Like a Dragon 8, as its own set of chapters. Realizing that they could expand upon those ideas and turn them into a full-fledged game, that's what they decided to do. Interestingly enough, Infinite Wealth was finished before Gaiden, and then they stagnated the release, with it being released in November, and then Like a Dragon 8 was released 2 months later in January. It was considerably shorter than any of the titles of the franchise. It brought back the action combat, and Kiryu is the protagonist again. It wasn't as bad because this was just a Gaiden title, right? It's not like you effectively killed the character 7 years ago, then, due to corporate meddling, brought him back as a mainstay to the franchise again because of money, right? That can't be what's going on here. All of this was planned completely from the start. But, despite that, at the time I didn't mind because they were able to tell a gripping story with the character. By the end of it, we got to see one of the most gut-wrenching performances of Takaya Kuroda's career. It's actually incredible how they got these emotions out of him, and it did make me excited for the next mainline entry to continue that story. While most people, including myself, remember Gaiden for its incredible story, characters, and tragic ending, a majority of the gameplay was basic RGG combat. But you saw most players on harder difficulties just thugging it out in Yakuza style, since this game started a pattern where the combat titles would shift less towards methodical attacking to brain-dead gameplay. Add along the fact the game introduces the Akame network, and while I loved Akame as a character, with first Summer Wika bringing that character to life so much that I want to play Super Monkey Ball with her, Gaiden resorts to side content to pad out the runtime. So you would go around town doing certain activities and side quests to level up her network for information, and rather than just playing a video game, I'm just going around town with a checklist so I can see what's next in the story. It's just busy work, and it's not fun. In past games, the story itself padded the runtime, but you can choose to do the side content at your leisure. However, this is just one game, and I was praying this doesn't become a trend with the franchise. Despite my concerns, I was still excited for the next title in the series. It was gonna be in Hawaii. Ichiban is back alongside Kiryu joining in for the ride, and it's shaping up to be the biggest game ever in the franchise. I'm so excited to see how it turns out! If this isn't your first rodeo with my videos, thank you for making it this far, but you know what happened. Like a Dragon 8, Infinite Wealth. After 4 long years, the sequel to Yakuza Like a Dragon has arrived. I was excited for it. But then, 6 months after the release of Like a Dragon Infinite Wealth, I released my video on it. It was 50 minutes. Most of it complained about the story. The game was good, but it was brought down by an overbloated gameplay experience and a underwhelming story. Like a Dragon Infinite Wealth is the biggest title in the franchise, but that's to the detriment of the game. Many of the decisions made for this game needlessly stretch the runtime. There is so much to do in Hawaii and Kamurocho, and they want you to see it all. Sure, the improvements to the game were nice, but it was the first RGG title I had to step away from because it didn't interest me at all. I mentioned in my video how Chapter 5 forces you to do 3 full days of Dodonko Island, and I just didn't like it. But it's mandatory. In past games, maybe you can do a side game or something part of the main story, but you can just go away from it if you wanted to. Lost Judgment was the best example of this because they would tell you to go and do other things, but then like 5 seconds later, you can progress the story. In these newer titles, maybe you would like the side content if they didn't force it on you. If I were to talk about the story without giving away too much, I already did a spoiler section for the Infinite Wealth video, so you can go check that out, and here I'll be quick. But the major problem with Infinite Wealth's story is that while we are doing dual protagonist again, the so-called new protagonist of the franchise, Ichiban Kasuga, is pushed to the side to deal with the lesser villain of the game, while the majority of the game focuses on Kiryu and his story. I liked Kiryu's story in Gaiden, and I loved how his story ended technically in 6, but I didn't want him to take over the franchise again after he, erased his name. Yakuza 0 did the dual protagonist setup without letting both protagonists feel like they were overtaking the other. There was a clear balance between both Kiryu and Majima's story, and how they rose to become like a dragon.
Like a what?
But this also rewrites 4, as 6 was supposed to give them that character finality, but then we're doing it again, and what's changed is that you gave him cancer, and he's supposedly gonna die for real this time, maybe? And the Like a Dragon games have been kinda strange with how they handle DLC. Usually they would do cosmetics and boosters, and what was annoying was Yakuza Like a Dragon locking 2 classes behind paid DLC. But for Infinite Wealth, Sega got away with selling New Game Plus and a post-game dungeon, The Big Swell, as DLC. I complained about this in my video. New Game Plus is also unbalanced and untested, and now you're asking players to pay $15 for this content. Yet you're still asking for $70 up front. This didn't affect me because, all transparency, I got a review code for the game, but now that the series has popularity and more fans, Sega for some reason getting Drewski for marketing for this game, also that XQC stream, but we don't want to talk about that. Sega realizes that they can get away with actually scamming their customers. So, what's next? Judgment 3? Koryu Remake? Nope. Gaiden 2. But Majima is a pirate. And as a fan of this franchise, okay, I gotta admit it, I was incredibly pumped. But it would be the first time in a long time I wouldn't get the game at launch, and waited for a sale for the deluxe edition. And did I like Pirate Yakuza? Well, despite the game being shorter than Infinite Wealth, it took me much longer to actually finish it, because this is the most boring game in the entire franchise. I played on the hardest difficulty, and I steamrolled through most, if not all, the encounters. Combat is not challenging anymore, because while they gave Majima the ability to jump and all the pirate abilities, I don't feel compelled to experiment, because I found the most effective strategy is to use Mad Dog style on encounters with a few enemies and then mash Y. Or throw my swords and mash buttons in Sea Dog style to quickly beat large encounters. I have never seen RGG combat be this brain dead, and I've beaten Yakuza 6 on Legend. While the concept of Majima becoming a pirate Yakuza in Hawaii is fun and interesting, you get one of the laziest stories ever written that doesn't do anything for Majima's character. The only time they actually did something or move him forward was in the epilogue. There are things to like in Pirate Yakuza being the spin-off title, but it felt like a whole lot of nothing to me. I don't feel like going back and playing it, and since it is a Gaiden game, guess who's back? Well, other than First Summer Wika as Noah, which she does a fine enough job, the checklist is back. It is now called the Pirate Rank. This forces you to do pirate stuff to level up your rank, to progress the story. Yay! By that point, once I got to the Pirate Coliseum, I just did enough to level up my rank to max, get the most powerful weapon so I didn't have to bother with everything. Again, I don't feel like a pirate sailing across the seas or feel like I'm enjoying a Yakuza game. I feel like I'm just doing things off a checklist. And to reiterate, this is not fun. Also, I don't know where to put this, and I'm gonna start complaining about Pirate Yakuza in a particular chapter, so if you don't want spoilers or want to completely skip this part, which I completely understand, here's a time code for it, and it will be marked in the video. Okay, let me talk about one of my most hated parts of Pirate Yakuza in Hawaii, alright? So, you're doing pirate things, you get to chapter 4, and you have to level up in the Coliseum, and you're actually gonna fight this guy named Mortimer in order to gain access to the rest of the story. Annoying, but sure, fine, whatever. I level up, I do all this thing, I beat the qualifier to fight Mortimer, but the receptionist tells you that he wants to help you because Mortimer is powerful and to give you a new cannon. Put this in my perspective, me, already having a fully leveled up laser cannon with 2000 power at this point in the game, clearly does not want to do that because I'm more than prepared for this fight. But no, you are forced to go to Honolulu to pick up this cannon. Okay, fine, let's go to Honolulu. But guess what? A trap set up by Keith. Oh, you don't remember Keith? The guy you fought 6 months ago, who you easily beat up at the beginning of the game, that you already forgot about and is massively underpowered in comparison to you? Oh, he set up a trap for this cannon for you. And you fight his goons, we get an honestly stupid pre-rendered cutscene where pirates are attacking the large Hawaii hotel, which is a concept that could be saved for a cool encounter, but it's done on literally the weakest characters in the entire series, Jack and Keith, the two bozos you forgot even existed and are completely uninteresting. You take down his fleet, you're rewarded with this flame cannon, and guess what? It only had 350 power! And for me, who actually spent time upgrading my cannons and everything, this cannon was useless! Great. You padded out the game to actually waste my time. Oh, by the way, you still couldn't even fight Mortimer because another misunderstanding happens with the crew. If the latter was the only thing that happened before you fight Mortimer, I wouldn't have minded. At least this other misunderstanding expands on the story and characters. But this fetch quest to Hawaii actively wastes your time and pads out this game. Why was this even in the game or made? But you're supposed to say SonicKick. This is a spin-off. They were just having fun with the game. Yeah, sure, I can agree to that, but am I having fun? Did I find progress being locked behind checklists just so I can see everything they made in this game fun? Am I having fun when they do nothing with a beloved character by giving him amnesia and making him a pirate that completely misunderstands why I like him? The last time Majima got a side story in a game, it was to gain closure on something that haunted him for 18 years. But this? He lost his memory and became a pirate because he fought a squid while he was out searching for eternal life. Speaking of which, I was so disappointed when they got fucking Samoa Joe as a character in this game. Samoa Joe, the wrestler. He's fat! And he is the most boring antagonist in the franchise. In his fight, you could have had him incorporate lariats, give him some wrestling moves, or have him walk away during a QTE fail. That would show me that you're having fun with the casting of this character. You can incorporate his personality by just using the actor and what he does for a living. But you don't even do that! The only memorable part was the epilogue. While it does give a decent reason why he was searching for eternal life, by this point, I do not care what happens to these characters anymore. Pirate Yakuza as a game in a bottle is fine. You can pick it up and have fun, but as someone who is a fan and likes the series, I couldn't vibe with this title, and it just made me frustrated with the games now. I can't excuse these things anymore because now it feels like they are stuck story-wise, so they can barely move forward with the franchise. So you know what RGG Studios started to do? Rehash and re-release their old titles. Again. So to keep in tune with barely moving forward with the franchise, the next big release was actually Yakuza 0 Director's Cut. It was released on my birthday and as a launch title for Switch 2. I was happy because, you know what, it's my birthday, I got the Switch 2, I bought it, I made my video, and while it was nice to play Yakuza 0 again, even with a somewhat mediocre English dub, I made a particular prediction in that video. Since this game constantly goes on sale and most likely will be delisted soon when Director's Cut comes to other platforms, I wish I didn't make this prediction. If you want my thoughts and criticisms of Director's Cut, my video is already there, but the big thing was that even with the 20 minutes of new cutscenes, characters who were thought dead were brought back to life. And it's bad. It still sucks. The choices made for those characters hurt the game, and the cutscenes don't add to the game, they make the game worse. Also, I only mentioned this slightly, but the localization is worse with spelling and grammatical errors in multiple languages, but we'll talk about that in the sequel video. With Zero Director's Cut, RGG realizes that they can just remove the original version for sale from all stores and force you to buy the new version. Not only does this new version take up more space on your machine, instead of it being either $20 or $5 if you get it on the sale, it's $50 for the same game with a crappy multiplayer mode and 20 minutes of new scenes. Oh, by the way, they also delisted the PC version. And the new PC version they made for Director's Cut isn't compatible with all the mods people have worked on for the past 8 years. And of course, save files can't be transferred over to the new version. Happy 20th anniversary! Oh, let's do the same thing for Kiwami 1 and Kiwami 2. Sure, you can upgrade to the new versions for free, but for Yakuza 1, you're gonna have to fork over $2. Thank you. And now, we get to the upcoming release of Yakuza Kiwami 3 and Dark Ties. RGG Studios is remaking Yakuza 3 now, and they changed everything fans loved about the original, like the actors, the look of the game, and if you don't like it, you can always play the original. Except you can't, because once Yakuza Kiwami 3 releases, Yakuza 3 Remastered, which has only been on store shelves for 4 years, will be placed in a collection on Steam that costs $120. In order to keep up with modern times, many of the original designs have been changed. This includes Rikiya, Nakahara, and Go Hamazaki, having new faces and performances. We'll get to talking about Hamazaki's new actor, trust me. But the new faces for Rikiya and Nakahara don't fit their characters. We went from having original designs for these characters that are easy to recognize, and now the characters are attached to the actors' likenesses again. It's bizarre to me that they couldn't get Rikiya's original voice actor back because he was Yuta in Yakuza 6. They were able to get Kanda's voice actor back as well, being Nagamo in 6. So I don't know what their deal with this remake is. It's probably because the actor Sho Komatsu was cheaper. Speaking of which, Sho Komatsu's likeness doesn't fit the character of Rikiya. In the original, Rikiya had the look of a young man from Okinawa who idolized the Yakuza men of old. His face and hair reflected that, as well as the colorful and bright shirt he wore. Rikiya contrasts with the people of Okinawa as someone who talks a big game, and, over the course of the game being with Kiryu, becomes stronger and had the strength to protect those he loves. In this new game, he doesn't have a bright shirt, we'll just give him a black one, and he looks like any other random thug on the street. Great. This also applies to the aesthetics of the game. Kiryu's shirt was also changed. It was changed to a greenish blue rather than the bright red. I don't understand why they had to change this original design, considering the whole game was based around the Takeshi Kitano movie Sonati. They even got Takeshi Kitano for Yakuza 6. You lose that inspiration by going with these new changes. It's embarrassing. Moreover, the fact that content that was exclusive to this game, like revelations and stuff like that, just take them out. Apparently, it's too much work to put them back in, even though in 2025, they re-released Yakuza Kiwami 2 and reused PS2 animations, and they still thought that was okay. And the biggest thing, as a game preservationist, the fact if you want to play the original game, the time to access it is running out. Yakuza 3 Remastered will be delisted when Kiwami 3 comes out. Because of course they're doing that. They want you to play the new version. And Kiwami 3 is supposed to act as a replacement for the original, according to RGG's actions, even though they are changing things people liked about that original version. If you don't like it, tough luck. find a physical copy of the remastered collection on PS4, or maybe the PS3 version, and that's also missing content. Or you can buy the Yakuza collection, which costs $120, even if you own most games in that pack. This is incredibly disappointing because these remasters were made to make the franchise more accessible to the general market. People liked Yakuza because even if some fans didn't vibe with Kiwamis, at least the original PS3 titles were still there in their original format, ready to be accessed on anyone who had modern hardware. Sega worked for around 6 years to have the entire Kiryu saga accessible to all players on all devices, and now the RGG of 2026 wants to take that away. This is why I get frustrated when people start to say that they predicted the downfall of the series, specifically either after Kiwami 2 or Yakuza 0. Because they still gave a fuck about those games. They went through the trouble of remastering those original 3 games, putting them on new hardware, and even going back and relocalizing them twice, because the second time they had to take out all the memes of the PC version and let that be easily accessible to anyone who wanted to play the games. Clearly, by RGG's actions before 2022, it was clear that they actually did care about their old fan base. Yeah, the Kiwamis were bad, but you still had multiple games coming out that people cared about, and they had those remasters. So all you grifters keep talking about how you predicted the downfall of the series. Stop gaslighting people and get your facts straight. You didn't predict shit. Now, it's time to address the elephant in the room. This section of the video deals with sexual assault, so go to this timecode if that bothers you. And if you do so and are uncomfortable by that topic, I would highly recommend that you do not buy Yakuza Kiwami 3 Dark Ties. The role of Go Hamazaki will be played by infamous Japanese kabuki actor Teruyuki Kagawa. Kagawa has a history of sexual assault. In July of 2019, at 11 p.m. at a hostess club in Ginza, Teruyuki Kagawa assaulted one of the 4 hostesses twice that night and the mama or manager of those hostesses. Kagawa would take off the hostess's bra, put his hand on her chest, and kiss her. The staff of the club got her out of the room, and when she went to the bathroom to put her bra back on, she realized that she left her cell phone and card case in the room. When she went back to get it, Kagawa would force her to stay, remove her bra again, put his hand in her clothes, and contacted a junior kabuki actor, showing her off on camera in a call to the junior actor. When the information about the hostess came out in 2022, Kagawa's agency had claimed that he issued an apology to her privately, and according to the said agency, she received his understanding and forgiveness. He would then go on a current events program he was a part of and issue a formal apology, but states that he had no plans to suspend his line of work. Because of that, he lost roles from other shows, and a week later was removed from the program he made that public apology on. He would return to doing kabuki performances 2 months later. A few months later, the mama would come forward with more photographic evidence of him harassing her, who he grabbed her hair, start pulling her hairpins out one by one, tearing off her hair. Then he proceeded to bury his face in the nape of her neck and sniff it, and also stuck his fingers under her armpits to smell her scent. He did all of this with a smile on his face. When the mama reached out to request an apology, Kagawa's legal team responded by telling her that she was taking advantage of the recent report. Her claims were a bait and switch of logic to make something that wasn't assault out to be assault, and they were past the statute of limitations anyway. The hostess developed PTSD from the situation with Kagawa, stating in a 2020 lawsuit against the hostess club that the psychological damage of being forced to see Kagawa's face every day against her will accumulated day by day. All of this information was incredibly easy to find and compiled by Masu, aka 0410 of the RGG wiki. He was very vocal about the situation and brought the entire thing to light. If you want more information and context, he co-wrote and posted a video about it on his channel. It mentions even more information about how Kagawa hit a female staff member on a show he starred in, and that he's banned from an entire district of clubs. All I really have to say is that this entire situation is fucked. The fact she developed PTSD is horrifying. Let alone the fact that his agency dismissed and censored the claims regarding the mama, even with photographic evidence of him smiling while doing it. And RGG Studios of 2025 decided that the right course of action was to hire this man for a fucking video game. Sickens me. Once fans got wind of this, the community was vocal in what they wanted. RGG Studios has not only known to recast people, they have a history of removing and redoing performances if a scandal breaks out. Even after the release of Judgment, when actor Pierre Taki was caught in a scandal for using cocaine after the game was released, they pulled the game from store shelves, redid all facial capture of this character, and recast him. Sega themselves also recast actor Toru Furuya for Metaphor ReFantazio for having an extramarital affair with a female fan who was 37 years younger than him, whom he threatened to strike and pushed her to get an abortion. That game was still released without any delays, and all of his characters, plural, had to be recast. They can put in the work to do something like this. They have the technology and development time. But their decision was to make sure Kagawa wasn't present for any public events of Kiwami 3 with pre-recorded videos. Then, as fans were vocal towards developers of RGG, specifically the director and producer of the game, Ryosuke Hori, he started blocking fans on social media and added, "Me wa kuripu suru hito wa buroku shimasu," to his profile, which translates to, "I block people who send annoying replies." RGG Studios' Japanese account proceeds to censor fans' replies talking about the situation on their YouTube live streams, including paid messages, hiding replies on Twitter talking about the situation, and, on the Western side, marketing feedback forms immediately as solved if they mention Kagawa. Furthermore, Kagawa's character has continued to appear in marketing trailers and standees for events, with the head of the studio posing with it before press events. They clearly know, and they aren't going to change anything about the game. I want to be hopeful for the future of RGG Studios. I want to be excited for Virtua Fighter 6 or Stranger Than Heaven, but I can't. This is a betrayal of trust with the community. For the past 10 years, RGG Studios was a company I could rely on. I witnessed the stories of troubled men who sacrificed a lot for others, but not for themselves. Men who were tolerant of others' beliefs, fought against the injustices of the world, learned through that and protected others. Men who brought people together under bad circumstances and loved them unconditionally and helped them to be better. And most of all, showed us as players who not to be, and showcased how that can harm you, others, and the society around you. And hiring a man who not only admits to sexually assaulting women, but also silencing others when they speak out tells us what we need to know as fans and players. You won't listen to us as your consumers and as a moral standpoint. So, I cannot financially support RGG Studios. I didn't even mention the spoilers of the game or other reasons I don't like Kiwami 3. I'm well aware of them, and I don't like content being taken out, or none of the original developers being credited in the remake, or even the previously mentioned spoiler, which is awful no matter how you spin it. It's because this is the hill you decided to die on. Those things are just annoying things I can get over as a fan. I'm not playing these games because I grew out of the series or anything. The reason I'm not playing these games anymore is because they used to be a developer I could trust, and now, hiring and standing alongside Pest and choosing that hill to die on, you broke that trust with me. And it's gonna take a lot of work if you want it back. I've been silent. I was hoping they would decide to do the right thing. They have the tools and everything to do the right thing. So if you don't like this, hit it where it hurts. Don't buy Yakuza Kiwami 3 or Dark Tides. Heck, stop supporting RGG Studios. Let other people know that this is what they're supporting. As a fan, this still sucks. But I don't want to remember Yakuza as the series that crashed and burned due to a sex pest. I'm going to remember all the great times I had playing these games for myself, this channel, and all the wonderful friends and mentors I met along the way. I've made so many memories with the series. Throwing my shirt onto my dorm's door during Zero's fight, staying up till 3 a.m., finishing 6, and the emotional roller coaster that took me on, giggling at 10 years in the joint for the very first time, clenching my fist as Kiryu pulled out that knife from his gut in the Sutenbori River, being hyped fighting enemies as Yagami and Kaito battled for Mafiyu's affirmation, having my jaw on the ground witnessing the Yakuza 4 fight for what's right, crying seeing Masato struggling and Ichiban begging for him to keep living, fighting Shirakawa later than any other player, and despite that, my community showing up to not only support, but enjoy that epic encounter with me. And even crying in a Discord call streaming Gaiden where my friends would just let me pour out my ugly emotion. Getting a chance to shitpost in LA with all the RGG community, and meeting Hikaru Shida. Being able to attend Atlanta twice just to talk about my love for the series, and all the memories it's had for me. And literally embodying Ichiban. Those memories are what I'm gonna remember RGG for. If they get their shit together, maybe I can hop back on the train. But for now, I'm gonna have to say goodbye. But at the very least, there's competition on the horizon.
Yes!